The City of Harran in Dying Light was so well designed that simply exploring the slums in the old town was a pleasure in itself. Sadly though, the same cannot be said for Dying Light 2's Villedor, as the insane levels of copy and pasted assets here make exploring feel samey and bland, especially inside the buildings. So I thought I'd find the worst of these reused assets and compare them to the original game, and then try to put my finger on just why Villedor isn't as fun to revisit as Harran. Okay, so the original Dying Light had its fair share of reused assets, but everything felt like it belonged and it didn't look out of place. I mean, yeah, there was identical recycling bins outside every house, but of course every house in real life has this, so you just accept it without thinking, and it was also a great way to loot for resources. The beehives in Dying Light 2, however, stick out like a sore thumb, and despite the arrangement being slightly different sometimes, they're essentially identical and are found on every other rooftop. Personally, I'd prefer to have flower patches marked on certain parts of the map the way they were in Harran, and not to be placed next to the exact same shed with the exact same bottle top wind chimes and the exact same dead tree behind every pair of beehives. Each of these areas seem placed as a whole like stickers in a sticker book, as do almost all of the assets in this game, and it just makes it all look procedurally generated and feels totally unnatural. The Night Runners hideouts are even worse, as they are literal carbon copies of each other, even down to the items on the shelves. Yeah, you always had a sleeping bag and stash in the first game, but that was it apart from some having a bounty board, and aside from that, every location was unique and you could tell where you were just by looking around, which is much harder to do from Villedor. I can live with the need for a generator and UV light, as that at least makes sense, but every safe location apart from some of the main ones all look pretty much the same as each other and completely lack any unique features. Even these bus hideouts in two completely different parts of the city have the same layout with the same chessboard and even have the exact same street sign covering the rear window. Without a doubt though, the worst offending safe zones for copy and paste are the metro stations, as when you load up at any of these locations, you have absolutely no idea where you are without checking the map first. I mean look, stash, bed, kitchen unit, drinks machine, plant and trash can. And if you fast travel to almost every other metro station in either the Central Loop or Old Villedor, you'll find this exact same layout with maybe some minor changes in asset placements and the occasional unbroken toilet seat in the restroom. The exit stairs all have that same Silencia poster at the top of them, the same graffiti in the exact same places, and even the suitcases in the corner are all carbon copies of each other. And even all this pales in comparison to some of the other more important building interiors. Remember all of the unique quarantine zones in the original game? Each one was beautifully designed and well thought out, but there was also an incentive to keep going back in. In some of them, disaster relief packs respawned after every visit, and of course they could be turned into the Quartermaster for XP to increase survivor rank or legend levels. In Dying Light 2 there are 6 GRE Quarantine Buildings, but to be brutally honest, if it wasn't for the amount of inhibitors in each, there might as well only be one, as they are all virtually identical apart from some enemy and layout alterations. To make matters worse, every single floor in each one is also a rinse and repeat grind for the same resources in almost exactly the same spots, and once the inhibitors are gone, the incentive to return is significantly reduced. I know they wanted to have all of the building interiors to be accessible in the open world, but if the sacrifice is any semblance of individuality between them, then I'd honestly prefer to have a short load screen to access them in favour of some more creative spaces. After all, we do still have load screens for fast travel in Dying Light 2, and I think it would be an acceptable compromise if they just closed the front access and put an enter prompt instead, as they did in the original game. The Dark Hollows had a few more variations on lootable buildings, but again, all of them have essentially the same interiors. Despite the layout and enemy differences, it just feels like you've stepped into a Twilight Zone version of the same place, where the walls have moved and areas have been blocked off, but that feeling of deja vu is still there. I mean, I could honestly go on about literally everything else in Dying Light 2, from military convoys to windmills to power stations, as the whole map suffers from this same AI-generated appearance. And I think the city alignment system is partly to blame for this, and I personally would have preferred them to just design a fixed map like the first game that just felt more organic and that you could believe had been created by humans and not a computer. A place that had a soul and had more evidence of life before the apocalypse, like schools, gas stations and parking lots, or birds flying in a sky that had a proper day and night cycle. All of this is missing in Villedor, and for that reason it lacks the realism and environmental storytelling that Harran had. So I think it's clear to see why Dying Light 2 can't quite rise above being a good parkour game and into the realms of an all-round great zombie game, as Villedor just isn't as interesting or diverse as Harran. That's not to say though that it can't be improved, and I can tell you that Techland have invited myself and some of the other Dying Light creators onto a special Techland Council now, where we can help them with our collective ideas and try to put this game back on the map. And I'm positive that they truly intend to make it feel as much fun to revisit as the first game was, and I still very much appreciate them as developers because of that alone. So what do you think? Do you agree that the level of copy and paste in Dying Light 2 spoils the game? Or are you happy with it the way it is? Let me know in the comments as always, and if you enjoyed the video then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers!